Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and it's a bit of a red week, bit of a knock on sort of various US news, it seemed like. Just sort of drifting around the same price. We did sort of pop up to 100 once again last week, and yeah, back down again. So down about 6.5%, 31,000, which yeah is a bit of a knock, but fair enough. Looking at the CoinShares report, it is ever so slightly red. So you can sort of see we had one slightly positive, one slightly negative, sort of completely pales in comparison with previous sort of months' inflows. They've sort of been doing this summary of the year rather than the week's figures, expanded these tables, and they've shown we've had 44 billion in total inflows across all the crypto. I've seen 813 million into altcoins outside of Ethereum for 2024. So that was pretty strong. That is largely over half into XRP, to be fair, and the multi-asset fund, with sort of everything else being a little bit smaller. They count short Bitcoin, I'm guessing, as altcoins, which maybe isn't true. Not sure actually. That might just be other Chainlink, XRP, and possibly Solana and the multi-asset fund. Um, but yeah, looking at by country, 2024. So we sort of noted Brazil most of the year, sort of having positive inflows, and they've been 234 million. Australia doesn't really get mentioned, but 165 million. Canada seeing a large outflow. I would have thought some of that is just going into the US ETF. They had 219 million outflow for the week, so that's provided sort of quite a large amount of that. Germany 328 million out, Sweden 680 million out, but Switzerland, pro crypto Switzerland, 630 million in for the year, and of course the US 44.4 billion. So yeah, pretty solid compared to sort of previous years. 2021 was particularly good. A lot of this was into futures ETFs, I think, back in 2021. So we didn't have the proper spot ETFs. Canada did, I believe, so they got 4 billion. That was sort of the start of ETF flows. So yeah, fairly interesting data, I thought. And of course, total AUM, 130 billion for Bitcoin, including the grayscale amount that was already there. 18 billion in Ethereum, which is pretty good. Again, with grayscale fund that was already there. 7 billion in multi-asset is fairly good, I would say. I still think that's sort of the future of ETFs, whether we get a sort of S&P, you know, style ETF, sort of top 10, top 20, whatever it ends up being. And then yeah, 1.8 billion in Solana, 900 million in XRP, and sort of the rest. And of course, by issuer, BlackRock smashing it, 58 billion, 28 billion in grayscale. So that's slightly down, I think, from when they started, and just Bitcoin going up in price has helped them along a great deal. Fidelity, 20 billion, pretty solid. Arc, very emotional, 4.8 billion. They sort of, up and down 200 million at a time quite easily. And then, yeah, the others are sort of all around the 4 billion. So, yeah, pretty good. Looking at the latest flows for this week, Bitcoin was only a 4-day, of course, because of the US president that passed away. And yeah, it's been sort of up and down really. On Monday, you had sort of a very strong day after that 900 million on Friday. Before 978 million, everyone positive, including the original grayscale at 1.5%. And then people sort of came to their senses on Tuesday. 590 million into BlackRock, but outflows from the rest. And then Wednesday, sort of everything came down. 568 million out. Thursday off. And then Friday, another outflow from Grayscale, 180 million, and sort of everything else fairly low numbers. So, yeah, a fair bit of selling from BlackRock. Certainly looks like net inflow only just overall, but certainly sort of last couple of weeks it's been, I would say, consolidation. If you said this was 100 million or two in overall on 37.6 billion, that is pretty good. And Bitcoin sort of coming down 15%, sort of hasn't even made a dent in this figure. So you would think people are a bit longer term than maybe some of the retailers. On the Ethereum side, it's been a little bit weaker. We had 124 million into BlackRock on the Monday. That was a positive day, and that was about it. You had nothing in or out of BlackRock for the rest of the week, and pretty much, well, actually everyone else negative for the whole week. Not a single positive across any of the issuers, and sort of 86 million out, 160 million out, 68 million out. So, yeah, it's they've not been liking the Ethereum just recently, but it's not huge outflows. You are seeing, Fidelity sort of 147 million. That's over 10% outflows in one day. So, yeah, some of these outflows are fairly big, and maybe on the Ethereum side they're not so diamond hands. Of course, this could be hedge funds and sort of basis trade type people that aren't even investing for the price of the underlying crypto. It's just an arbitrage. Certainly, some of them on the Bitcoin side are doing that. They're not buying the ETF, hoping Bitcoin goes up. They're just shorting the futures, buying the ETF, and sort of collecting 20% a year gain. And they're perfectly happy with that. They don't really care whether it goes up or down. So we did get a MicroStrategy buy. I kind of thought they were done, but they were able to get one more in. I believe they are now done for January, but yeah, we'll have to see. I thought they were having a blackout period and weren't allowed to buy until earnings, but yeah, they bought 1,070 Bitcoin, so these have been sort of getting progressively smaller. I think we had 2,000 and 4,000 before that, and sort of the much bigger buys back in sort of November, December time. So yeah, they bought at $94,004 per Bitcoin, so sort of getting a little bit more under 100,000 certainly, and they now hold 447,470, and they're sort of banging on about yield, of course. But importantly, their average is still 62,500, which isn't horrendous. There is still potential that it goes to that maybe in the next bear market, potentially 2026. So yeah, that could certainly cause issues. I don't think they've got all that much convertible debt going sort of expiring next year, but I expect they have got some. And yeah, if Bitcoin's sort of that price and the stock isn't where they want it to be, then they may have to start selling some Bitcoin, and that'll spook the whole market. So I would certainly be prepared if you're sort of holding through next year for this to be a sort of potential bear narrative. People getting excited about this from the looks of it. So you've got the US government level strategic Bitcoin reserve potentially going into place. But the individual states, not to be outdone, of course, they have their own funds and they're very sort of separate in the US. Each state sort of has its own power and its own, budget. They can do what they like. They take state taxes and can sort of spend that how they like. And they're sort of pushing for their own state level strategic reserve. So there's 11 states, it looks like, already in on this, and they're sort of pushing a new legislation. Interesting that they've sort of included precious metals, an act relative to enabling the state treasury to invest in precious metals and digital assets. I thought it was very interesting as well that they would put number 1 silver and then number 2 gold or number 3 platinum sort of thing. If you're talking about precious metals, most people would say gold, silver, and then maybe others, but maybe me reading into it a little bit too much. But the fact that you put silver number one is sort of potentially something. But I wonder whether they're trying to sort of bury digital assets in amongst a larger bill, or potentially they, states want to be buying silver if they've got electric vehicles and sort of needs for silver. I think there's a possibility there. But yeah, everyone's sort of getting excited for the 20th, a week Monday. So it's certainly coming up, but yeah, certainly you have the state level potentially wanting to get in on that as well. If you start getting sort of a dozen, 20, states having their own little reserve, presumably they would be sort of having to buy. They don't have any, sat around or seized. They would have to buy. And of course, while we're talking about seized Bitcoin, we have the sort of potential bad news. The US government cleared to sell 69,000 worth of Bitcoin from the Silk Road. So everyone's sort of been talking about the US Strategic Reserve, which starting with their 200,000 that they hold, and it's sort of being reminded to people that that was all pretty much seized from criminal activity, and there's potential claims on that Bitcoin. So this company, Battleborn, is arguing that it has lawful rights tied to an individual accused of misappropriating Silk Road funds, and that they are entitled to that Bitcoin. So then presumably it would go sort of back to holders that originally were there, and who knows what would happen with it then, rather than sort of being declared a strategic reserve and sort of almost certainly held by the US. So I guess it does sort of create the slightly bullish scenario that if they wanted to make a strategic reserve, they might want to sort of buy back 6.5 billion worth of Bitcoin to get it back to the 200,000 that they were currently at. There is also a case, I believe, for I think another 70,000 of what they hold going back to Bitfinex and being distributed to people there. If a lot of people are sort of likening this to much smaller scale things. If a burglar comes and sort of steals a load of your jewelry or something from your house and the police catch them, should the police give that jewelry back to you, or should they seize it and sell it? If it's proven to be yours, should you not get it back? So yeah, there's potential for 70,000 to be going out the door, and potentially another 70,000 going out to Bitfinex, which I think would only leave them with 60,000, and that doesn't sound much like a strategic reserve as it does at the moment. So yeah, keep an eye on this, I suppose. Got more executive talk as well in America. The CFTC, Commodity Futures Trading Commission, Chair Rostin Benham is going to step down on the 20th, same as Gary Gensler. So everyone seems to be wanting to get out. I was quite surprised. He seemed to be sort of relatively well liked, I suppose. He was sort of starting to turn into a bit of a Gary Gensler, bringing quite a few cases, and some people are calling it regulation by enforcement as far as crypto goes, and there's sort of various people being talked about as his successor, whether they would be sort of accepted or approved by Trump. You have one of the commissioners at the CFTC already, Summer Mersinger, who is sort of fairly pro-crypto. She sort of criticised the way they've been handling it, calling it regulation by enforcement, essentially. And yeah, she would sort of be apparently one of the many names Trump is considering for the role. You also have Brian Quintenz, whether I'm pronouncing that correctly, who knows, is currently crypto policy chief at A16Z, which is sort of maybe a little bit optimistic to get him. But yeah, Trump also nominated him to the CFTC in 2017, so yeah, there's potential certainly for that, and his sort of connections to Mark Andreessen, would be sort of hugely positive for the space. You've also got Marco Santori, Chief Legal Officer at Kraken. So, yeah, one of the largest global exchanges. Again, probably a little bit too optimistic. And Caroline Pham has been CFTC Commissioner since April 2022. So, again, all of these people really are seen as fairly positive, but it's up to Trump basically, and he hasn't for everyone he hasn't gone with sort of the top picks as far as who people are expecting him to go for. So I would say maybe take all of these with a pinch of salt and see what he does, but interesting to keep an eye on. Probably small news as far as the crypto industry goes, but affects us a little bit more in the UK. Staking is no longer classified as a collective investment scheme. So basically means from the blockchain side, staking is a little bit more widely recognised and be solely as a process for blockchain validation. There was sort of talks that it would be subject to the regulatory requirements for a collective investment scheme. It's being seen more as cybersecurity, as Bill Hughes at Consensus says. So, yeah, sounds like people, or at least the UK government, are working with some people that are a little bit more knowledgeable on it, rather than sort of how the US has been basically looking at it from the outside. And it looks like it applies to qualifying crypto assets that meet the UK's existing legislation. So there's a sort of a few hoops to jump through, but if you meet their criteria, then basically you're allowed to do staking, and sort of the UK aren't going to look on it sort of harshly. Some people are obviously having to withdraw products from US exchanges for things that aren't allowed over there, and certainly in the UK as well, we're not exactly super friendly on some things. You sort of try and do certain things and it'll say it's not available in your area because of existing UK government restrictions. They're not a fan of derivatives and sort of various products. So yeah, we're potentially going a little bit more positive. This is something I think people are getting a little bit too excited about. You had Vanek, 21 shares, Canary Investments, and Bitwise all apply for a Solana ETF, and the first deadline of those ETFs to be approved or delayed, most likely, is January the 25th, so 2 weeks yesterday. And yeah, it's, Paul Atkins, the new SEC chairman, and Trump will have been in 5 days. I can't see that they're just suddenly going to approve all of these. You also sort of cynically, you notice there's no BlackRock ETF, and without a BlackRock ETF, I can't really see these going ahead. It's sort of, I would say, no surprise that these ETFs have been talked about for years and years, and then sort of 6 months after BlackRock apply for one, suddenly they go through. So yeah, maybe when they get one, I would put a little bit more stock into it. But yeah, some people are saying maybe with smaller coins, you might have these smaller providers potentially going first. If they do punt it out on the January the 25th, which you would expect, as I say, the SEC just getting their feet in the door. It would just be sensible, really, to just say we're only just here. We need to look over these. We'll delay that, and it would then go to March the 11th, and sort of that. I would think that would be the very earliest they could possibly give these the go ahead. They do appear to be potentially lowering the bar for crypto ETFs. They sort of seems to be the precedent before that. You need futures markets on the CME, and sort of even potentially even ETFs already on on those underlying products. You had Bitcoin and Ethereum futures, and ETFs on those before you had spot ETFs. But I think that seems to have been just the way that people could then force the SEC's hand to accept the spot ETFs. Whereas if you actually had a pro crypto SEC, as they're saying, they might sort of lower the bar for these actually to be approved. So, yeah, a lot of people are saying they expect a Solana and XRP ETF to be approved this year. In addition to Solana, as they say, Bitwise, Canary, and 21 shares have also filed for XRP ETFs. Guess not VanEck just yet. I'm sure they'll be in there if there's a hint of an XRP ETF being accepted. And in December, the Bloomberg guys, Eric and James, thought that 2025 would usher in a wave of cryptocurrency ETFs. Again, sort of would be sort of most bullish about a crypto top 10, for example, probably excluding stable coins. You wouldn't really want to have an ETF for including just a dollar that isn't going to go up, basically. So yeah, that would be interesting. And the comedic relief at the end, the chap that binned his hard drive back in 2013, or unfortunately it did come out, his former partner mistakenly binned the hard drive. A little bit harsh. Has sort of tried to sue the council. He said that he wants access to that hard drive. They've got to, dig it up in some way, or he wants to be able to dig it up, or he wants 495 million in compensation from the council. I think I would say you've been the hard drive. It's not the council's fault. You're not entitled to just say I want to start going digging up a landfill. Obviously, it's 12 years old now. It's had a considerable amount put on top of it, I would have thought, and potentially, wouldn't even work if you did find it. I'm guessing this landfill is outside, and it's sort of been, it's had 12 years of hard frosts, and wouldn't be in the best condition. So it's 7,500 Bitcoin. It's sort of currently worth almost 600 million pounds, and this chap's looking a little bit worse for wear every time we see him. He's sort of continually saying, like, I think at one point he was saying, I'll give you 25% of the Bitcoin to the council, as a sort of sweetener to help him try and dig it up. And it's just not happening. I think he needs to give it up. Obviously, it's very difficult to sort of let that go if you potentially have 600 million pound sat in a landfill sort of a couple of miles from you. You're just constantly going to want to try and access it. It would completely change his life, but maybe you just have to move on. So, looking at coins for the week, we've got no greens at all. That's fairly expected. Bitcoin is down 2.2%, so you can see it's nothing really sort of too bad. A lot of this is altcoins, certainly for me. Solana, being the second largest position, is 11.6% down, not particularly good. Ethereum down 9%, Chainlink down 12.6%, so it's certainly the altcoins that are underperforming. Gala down 13%, Power Ledger down 0.8%, so that's held up reasonably well. Quant down 8%, Internet Computer down 12.6%, VeChain down 10.4%, Audius 12.5%, Basic Attention Token 3.5%, and Polygon down 10%. So, most of them sort of down around about 10%. Bitcoin only down 2%. So, we'll see what sort of next week or two brings. Next week will be leading up to the Trump inauguration, and then obviously we have a week Monday. It all begins, and we'll see sort of what is most important. I think everyone's expecting Trump to sort of have a load of executive orders and a load of things sort of ready to basically sign off. So we're expecting a fair amount in the first week, but I would think he's got much more important things to be worrying about just straight away. It's not going to be get in, sign off the strategic Bitcoin reserve. He's obviously got wars and, all sorts of things to be sorting out. So I think maybe don't get too optimistic about it. Sort of things going through in the first few days. There might be mentions of it, but yeah, I would say be patient. So yeah, leave your thoughts in comments below and like and subscribe. See you soon.